Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to another demo of the Leostream platform. My name is Corey Diatoma, and I'm an account manager here at Leostream. I'm being joined today by Karen Gondoli, our CEO, who will actually present the demo and show you the inner workings of the Leostream platform. Today, we're going to be talking about remote applications. Remote applications are oftentimes crucial for businesses as it allows firms to aggregate their overall license count so that they're able to better optimize their costs for different applications. Additionally, remote applications offer an enhanced layer of security that can help with organizations looking at increasing their security in terms of VDI or remote apps. Karen Gondoli is going to talk to this more on the next slide.
Okay, thanks, Corey. So as you mentioned, in the demo today, I'm going to show you a few things, and I just gave you a little overview of them here, and I really want to talk about why these things are important. Well, in Leostream, we talk a lot about we're managing connections to hosted desktops, and those can be cloud, they can be virtualization, they can be physical, but very rarely does the end user, your employees, actually care about getting to the desktop. What they care about is the applications they need to get their jobs done and the data that's needed to run those applications. So today, let's focus just purely on the applications. So how can you use Leostream to accomplish application streaming, essentially? And why would you want to do this? Well, first, and Corey mentioned this, one of the things is to optimize your license usage. A lot of times you have applications that are very pricey to license for each user. So why give each user a workstation under their desk or in the cloud and their own individual license for that application if that user is only going to need it for a couple hours of the day or week? So what you want to be able to do and what you can do in Leostream is create pools of these applications and then share them amongst a greater user base so that you can really lower your costs and optimize the usage of that application. Now, another important thing is obviously your end user experience. By and large, any type of hosted desktop application system that you develop, it's kind of doomed to failure if your end users don't like and appreciate and have a very seamless end user experience. And that is one of the things that Leostream really can help you out with. One facet of that is this single portal where users can go to get access to all of their applications, whether that application runs on Windows, Linux, or macOS. You don't have users who have to log into different portals or run around to different desks and find the right operating system. You can actually just provide them one portal and then they can get access to anything. Lastly, and Corey mentioned this, is increasing security. I'm going to show you one example in particular here, which is providing a browser in the cloud. Particularly now, people are remote, you might be doing BYOD initiatives. It becomes a little bit sensitive for someone to go and be able to browse around the internet, either on their local device or on your corporate sponsored device, because they could download files, they could infect their machine with malware. But if you give them a browser hosted on a non-persistent cloud machine, now the user can go and browse securely, or at least off of their own machine. And if they do something bad to that machine, it doesn't matter. You're going to delete it in the end anyway. It matters, but at least you're going to delete the machine. So let's kind of talk about these three use cases here and show you how this would look in Leostream. To do that, I'm going to share my screen. So here we have the web interface for the Leostream connection broker. And what I want to do first is log in as an end user. So here, these are my credentials. I'm going to sign in. And you see I'm offered 4 different types of applications to connect to. Here, as I mentioned, it might be a browser in the cloud. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And what this is actually doing is it is going to launch an HTML5 connection to, in this case, it's an EC2 instance, going through the Leostream gateway. So I go through the Leostream gateway, I'm connecting to an EC2 instance, but the way I've configured that instance is to actually just open up in the shell of the machine Google Explorer or the Google web browser. So now I can come and I can browse all I want. And then when I'm done, what the Leostream connection broker will do in the background is actually delete that machine and spin up a new one for the next user. So again, if I browse somewhere bad, at least the badness is encapsulated inside of that machine in the cloud and off of my network and off of my local device. Some of the other things I have here, well, if let's say you're a development environment or just an organization that likes Linux in general. A lot of people like just being able to SSH into a Linux machine and work at the terminal. Well, you can do that through a Leostream login as well. So now what I'm doing here is logging into, in my case, I think it's a CentOS machine. Yep. Now I'm just here at a shell prompt and I can do all of the different development tools. I can edit in VI, whatever else you want to do within the terminal. That's about all I know how to do within a terminal is edit within VI. But now your developers have access to their Linux environment, again, from a nice, easy web browser login there. What else can we do? Well, we talked about all these different operating systems, so let's, of course, connect to something running on macOS. We do a lot of work with media and entertainment organizations who have applications for their live and post-production engineers that run on Mac. So you want to be able to actually launch a connection to that macOS. So here, what I have is through, again, our Leostream gateway, a VNC connection in browser to my Mac. And now often what we see for these applications is they need to run as a particular user, not as the user who logs into Leostream. So while I logged into Leostream with my AD credentials, I'm going to log into the Mac with a different set of credentials that allow me to run the application I need to use. And the nice thing is the connection broker, the Leostream environment, is going to manage those identities. So it will know, oh, this Leostream user logging into the Mac is associated with my K-Gondola user inside the connection broker, and all the fancy release plans that will help you optimize the usage of this machine will still be in play, even though the identities don't match. All right, one more. So the last thing, if you do have Windows servers out there and you want to turn them into application publishing servers, we could still do that. So of course here I've just, in this case, published a very simple WordPad application. I'd already logged into this, so I was already working. So even though this is essentially an RDS server and I have multiple sessions running here, it knew to reconnect me to my session so I can get back to my work. Again, because it's through our gateway, it's nice in the browser. User can access from anywhere, from any device. So how did we make that all happen? Well, we did that in here. This is the same interface, but now I'm going to log in as the main Leostream administrator. Okay, so to show you how this is set up in here, let's first get you grounded in the environment itself. So in the setup section here, I connect my Leostream connection broker to all of the external systems that are part of this demo. So I have my authentication servers here. In my case, I'm just using AD, but I also have this broker set up that I could just single sign on in using my Google account. Now this demo, this broker is very hybrid, but this demo is still hybrid, just not as hybrid as it looks here. What I'm leveraging in this case is AWS US East. That's where my browsers in the cloud are living. And then I have my on-prem VMware environment. That's where my Linux machine and that terminal server that I mentioned, RDS server, is hosted. And then I actually even have just some physical desktops here. This is my Mac that's running. So all of these different resources are managed in one place. And that simplifies not just the end user's access to them ultimately, but even just IT's day two operations. From here forward, your IT staff has one portal where they can go, and if they need to reboot machines or see who's using them, they can do it all from within this interface instead of having to run to different management portals or even just run around the office looking for physical machines. So those are the centers that I'm using here. The other thing I'll point out is I do have two gateways in this broker, one to get me to on-prem, so those HTML5 connections to my VMware environments, my Linux, for example, that went through the gateway that's hosted on premises. But then I'd have a gateway that's in AWS. That is the gateway I went through to get to my browser in the cloud. So you can see here that from one Leostream environment, you can actually manage connections to all of these different locations. And that gives your user, again, a single login where even as they roam around, you can change what they have access to so that you always connect them to resources in the closest AWS region, for example, and it goes through the appropriate gateway. Again, that's really all about maximizing your end user experience. All right, so now let's look in the configuration section and talk a little bit about these different workflows. How did I get the desktops to appear when I logged in as an end user, and how did the broker know how to connect to them? Well, I'm going to start here by looking at pools. So there's a full few pools that are used in this particular demo. One, of course, is the browser and the cloud pool. And what I'm doing here is essentially creating a pool of non-persistent machines that are built off of a master image that has that browser that will open up in the shell when the user logs in. So the pool definition simply creates the pool, and I just say it's anything with the name RDP. That's just my convention here. But here I have provisioning enabled, and then I set some limits. I want to make sure there's always one waiting for someone to use, and I want no more than 5 so that I don't over provision in the cloud, because obviously there's a cost associated with that. And then I set up all the parameters that define how to launch that instance. In this case, it's in AWS, but you can provision in any number of different platforms using Leostream. The parameters that you'll set in this form change, obviously, based on where your provisioning is, but you do see across all the different clouds, hyperconverged infrastructures, OpenStack, virtualization, you can manage your capacity using Leostream as well. And then obviously, because what I want this to be is a non-persistent machine, I want it to go away when the user's done browsing, I'm going to mark it as deletable here. So again, persistent and non-persistent workflows are possible in Leostream, as well as pretty much anything in between, which we'll talk about here in a bit. So that's my browser in the cloud pool that's handling spinning up machines when people need to browse in the cloud. The other pools that I have here, just to show you, so here is my WordPad pool. And I didn't point it out in centers, but I also have this center here somewhere, application publishing. So this is my RDS server, essentially, and that I'm using for application publishing. And what I did when I created the center was said, I want a maximum of 5 users to be able to simultaneously use this machine. That number is up to you. But then what I did in pools is I created a pool of WordPad, which is essentially all the sessions that are part of that center. How you define pools is very, very flexible. You basically will do it in the way that best suits the different workflows that you have. In my case, for this one, it's just a pool of everything in that RDS center. And then I have a pool here, which is my Mac machines. So you'll see here, I'm defining the pool differently. Now I'm doing it based on not just my name, because I prepend all of my machines with my initials, but then I want this pool to just be Mac. So I'm actually looking at the operating system. And this is some information that's being returned by our Leostream agent that's running on that Mac OS. So the agent, which runs on Mac, Linux, and Windows, sends back all of this information to the connection broker so that you can use it for creating pools and making sure that users get assigned to the correct resources. So those are the pools that we'll work with in this demo. And then I set up a few protocol plans to control how I'm connecting to them. And as you saw, you can use all sorts of different protocols, and one user login can launch all these different protocols from the same session. So for my browser in the cloud login, I came in from a web browser. I'm using our HTML5 viewer using the gateway that's in AWS. For my application, HTML5 application, in this case, I'm still using the HTML5 viewer through my on-prem gateway, because that RDS server is on our premises. But you'll see there's a section down here at the bottom of these parameters to indicate which application. So I published the application on that RDS server, and then I can just have the Leostream gateway connect to only that application. You can have the gateway connect to the entire desktop as well, but in this case, I just want it to be the application. Similar for SSH. For the SSH connection, again, that's going through our HTML5 viewer in our gateway, and I just selected SSH. You know, just our gateway can do RDP, PNC, and SSH. So that's why it supports all those operating systems that you saw. Now for that browser in the cloud use case that I mentioned. I said, if somebody's done with it, you want to delete it. That's done through these release plans here. So for example, if I look at my delete on release, here, a release plan allows you to automate actions based on events that come from the Leostream agent. And that's key for this optimization that I mentioned, being able to optimize resource usage. You want to release a desktop when a user's done with it. And what done means is completely up to you and what your users need to accomplish. In my case, I'm saying if they disconnect, release the machine immediately. You're done. But in some cases, you might want to wait so that they can go to lunch and come back, but disconnect their session in between. So here, because this is a non-persistent, what I'm doing is when the desktop is released, I'm going to wait 5 minutes just in case they need to log back in. But after 5 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And that is going to trigger the broker to provision a new machine because of the way my pool is set up. So again, all of this stuff is automated in the background. So once you set up these rules, now the administration and the IT day-to-day task is very, very simple. So all of this comes together in what we call a policy. So if I look, this is my demo policy that I'm using here. And the pool assignments is where most of the action occurs. So I can come in here and allow the user to access as many pools as they happen to need access to. So you'll see they are getting one machine from the Linux pool, and I select the protocol, and also one machine from the Mac pool. You can see all the different ones here. If I edit this macOS, you can see there's a lot of different options in here that help the broker kind of hone in on the right machine that might be in this pool. In the case of application publishing, probably all the machines look about the same. So you'll just leave these at the defaults and then let us pick the topmost desktop and then set the plans here. So why did I get that policy when I logged in? Well, that was done through our assignments page here. So here you see this is essentially the assignments for our Active Directory server. So for a user who's a member of a particular group coming in from a certain location, that will give them a role in a policy. So I'm in the student group. So I just fell into this first row here. But if I wasn't in that group, I would fall through. And so now based on the user's group membership, you can give them access to different policies. Based on their location, you can indicate if they need to go through MFA or not. This is great for that security factor we talked about. A lot of times what we've seen is if you have users logging in from a remote location, you want them to go through MFA, maybe your SAML-based identity provider like Okta. But if that same user is sitting in the office, then username password is usually just fine. They've already done that second factor by tapping themselves into the building. So again, all this different flexibility that allows you to make sure your environment remains secure and that you have control over who has access to what, but then also that users always get access to what they need because you want to make sure your users remain happy and productive. So I think I will stop the demo there and hand you back over to Corey.
Thanks, Karen. If you're interested in learning more or potentially even trying this out for yourself, you can go to leostream.com and request a free trial using our website. Or if you're just interested in starting a VDI project and you have some questions that you would like to get answered, you can contact sales@leostream.com.